Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Now here I have the Valeton GP-50 and I wanted to run through a few simple tips in a quick video for you today. Now I do have a more full detailed walkthrough coming in the next couple of days, so if you haven't already, get yourself subscribed to the channel so you don't miss that or any future videos. I'll also be creating a playlist like I did with the GP5, running through a few other things such as using the app, some MIDI functionality, and setting up external controllers to get the most from your GP-50. Links to all that will be down below when they're ready to go. So in this video, I wanted to quickly talk about these two onboard foot switches here and what they're basically capable of. Now, there are some things that they can do which you may or may not be aware of, but this might mean that you don't need to necessarily go out and buy an external foot switch like this Ampero dual switch here, or even a MIDI controller like the M-Wave Chocolate, or even something a little bit more advanced like the Morningstar MC8 Pro. And instead of investing in some of those external controllers, it might do everything that you need it to on board. So let me show you what I mean. Now, out of the box, you'll see we've got two arrows on the screen here, and we can change modes simply by going into the global settings here, moving over to foot switch, and here we can see we've got the mode which is patch, or we can toggle that over to stomp. And what that basically means is you can use these foot switches to move up or down with your patches, as indicated by the arrow on screen, or I can change that over to stomp, come out of that, and now I've got the stomp mode activated so I can turn on or off the effects. You can see I've got a pre and a mod block here, turning on or off, and delay and reverb on this foot switch. But if I go back to the patch mode here, this is the default setting. What if you wanted to access the patch and the stomp modes using the foot switches on board, rather than having to have an external foot switch to operate that action? All we have to do is hold this foot switch down for a couple of seconds. You'll see these arrows change between those two modes. So now we have the stomp mode. If I hold it down again, it will go back to the patch mode. So that's really handy to have, and it means that we don't need to use an external foot switch. Perhaps if you were setting it up with stomp mode, you don't need to have an external foot switch necessarily to move up and down between your patches. Now I'm going to go back to the patch mode here, and now we can move back up and down between the patches. Another feature I wanted to talk about is tap tempo. You don't necessarily need an external controller to operate the tap tempo function. Let me go to a different preset with a different tempo. You can see on preset number 4 here, the tempo is set to 142 beats per minute. So let's say you wanted a different tempo for that particular preset and those time-based effects. Now, obviously you could set this up in the settings, which I'll go over in a different video, using that external controller. But if you wanted to access that tap tempo feature using these foot switches, all we need to do is hold this foot switch down and the LEDs will start flashing blue. And now I can tap any of these foot switches to change that BPM. So let's slow it down. So now we're around 70 beats per minute, and I can speed it up all the way up to 193. And I can come out of that tap tempo mode simply by holding this foot switch down again. And now I'm back into my patch up and down mode. So I'll just go back into tap tempo. Again, we'll hold this foot switch down for a couple of seconds, and I can use either of them to change the tempo. If I hold this foot switch down, it will change back to stomp mode rather than patch mode. And that means when I come out of the tap tempo feature now, I have stomp mode activated instead of the patch mode. So now we're in stomp mode. I'm going to go over a couple of things, one of which is the LED color that we've got selected here. You can see that all of the blocks are set up so that green is the off status of each of the blocks, and then red would be on. Now, if you wanted to change that, you can do that on board. You wouldn't necessarily need to connect to the app to do this. All we need to do is make sure that we're in stomp mode and not patch mode. We're going to press this parameter knob down, and now you can see I can cycle through each of those blocks. The ones with the number in the top right-hand corner shows me which foot switch I'm going to use to operate. So you can see that one is number 1 because it's foot switch number 1. And then if I just scroll across to the delay, that's going to be foot switch number 2. So let's say I wanted to change the color of the delay so that it was red when it was off and green when it was on. All I need to do is turn that off. So now the status of that block is off. Exit out of this. You can see my distortion is on when it's red. The delay is off when it's red, and now the delay is green when it's on. So that's how quickly you can do that on board the unit itself without the need to have to go into the app and do it that way. But at the moment with the current firmware, we do only have red or green to choose from there. And then the final tip that I wanted to go through was the status of each of these blocks. So you can actually set up 3 blocks for each of the foot switches. So with this preset, I've got modulation and delay turning on or off with this foot switch, and just a reverb with this foot switch. But you can actually set it up so you've got up to 3 blocks here and up to 3 blocks with this foot switch. And I'll go into that in a lot more detail in the full walkthrough of the GP-50. Just to demonstrate what I mean, you don't need to use the app for this feature as well. Let's say I want the modulation to be off and the delay to be on in its first status over here. And when I press the foot switch, I want the modulation to come on and the delay to go off. That's absolutely possible as well. All we need to do is make sure that we are in stomp mode again, press the parameter knob down, move over to either of those blocks. So we know we want modulation or delay. So let's turn the delay off for this particular one. They're both set to foot switch number 1. Exit out of this. Now I've got my modulation on when it's red. The modulation goes off and the delay comes on when it's green. So that could be a useful feature for you as well, and you wouldn't, again, necessarily need to go and do this with an external foot switch. So there's just a few tips for you getting the most out of your GP-50. I hope it has been useful. Like I said, there's loads more content coming and a full detailed walkthrough coming over the next couple of days. So do get yourself subscribed to the channel so you don't miss that. And as always, everybody, I'll see you in the next one.